Good morning, Dr. Chris Schultz here with your public service research to practice. And today we're going to talk briefly about understanding factors impacting volunteer firefighters' work, family, and volunteer balance to serve. This was research I conducted as part of my doctoral dissertation. I wanted to look at the volunteer fire service primarily because I'm concerned with the decline in volunteers. And I wanted to understand a little bit more what makes volunteers tick. So I know from my own personal experience, which I had to disclose obviously as a potential limitation or from my positionality in my research, but from my standpoint and my background, uh, a lot of the research has been generated on surveying leadership within these organizations. And I wanted the perspective of the firefighter, and I wanted to understand how they balance their time because it's my one of my thoughts is that we as the volunteer fire service have to work more with the individual, and watch how we establish our protocols, our standards to require certain time commitments. And so, for example, if somebody can give 20 hours a month, 20 hours a week, or 20 hours a day, we have to understand that from a firematic standpoint, and build that into our structure of response. So, uh, this is kind of what the research is. At the bottom of the page, you can find where you can get the actual um, dissertation if you want to read it further. But from this video's perspective, it's really just to give those in the practice of volunteering some possible suggestions or recommendations that they should look at. So first and foremost is the any potential or current volunteer firefighters understand, in reality, you are balancing your life, and it's about your own personal choice and how you decide to give your time and energy across the different things in your life, whether it's family, work, school, whatever it might be. There is no right or wrong. There's no formula to it. It's basically how you prioritize and decide what you are going to be able to give to the volunteer organization. So, for example, uh, there are in the research, many members talked about their employment being a priority, right? They have to pay the bills. And so for some at a certain point in time, they no longer would respond at a certain point in the evening, because they had to get up and go to work. And so, again, understanding that every individual's experience with the fire organization is going to be different. Second, recommendations to fire service organizations. Um, you should look at these individuals more individually. We all have minimum standards that we want them to be able to meet, but some might not be able to meet that. And we uh, should be, I think, more flexible in how we deal with that. Um, but it's going to take more effort on the organization's part. And some organizations feel they don't have the capacity to do that. So, one suggestion would be to either look at your local municipality that you may be serving, and whether or not they have an HR, human resource department, that could take on some of the the training files, the requirements, right? Just some of the administrative stuff that allows you to focus more on the training, and working with this individual and how you will do that. I also think you should consider meeting with each firefighter on an annual basis, like a performance review, but more so to understand what's impacting their life in the next coming year. Are they expecting a child? Are they going to school? Has work shifted? Whatever, at least have some understanding of what time commitments they can and should be. Again, they're not always going to be there, and it's frustrating. I understand. I've been on both sides of this. So I'm just trying to give some guidance there. And lastly, The research bore out that the participants were unclear whether their communities, including the elected leadership in those communities, really understand the fire service delivery type to be volunteer, and what those challenges are. I mean, think about it. You pick up the phone, you call 911, and a fire apparatus shows up. It doesn't really matter what it says at that time of need. It's just that it shows up. It may not be from your own community because they may be limited staffing, especially during the daytime. So just trying to understand that the participants felt that communities were not really aware of that. And so communities have to be more engaged in this, right? We're all busy, but if you and or your children are not going to volunteer to the local fire service organization, who will? Just riding coattails of other volunteers that, oh, there's always going to be somebody there, is not working. We know there's a decline. There's been a decline for years. It continues to trend down, and it's going to impact some communities. And so if we're not going to be able to generate new volunteers and or retain volunteers, right? Retaining is just as important. Then elected officials need to understand that at some point in time, there may be a shift to some paid or part paid system, or even paying another community to come in and serve. And so that's going to impact taxes. And, elected officials don't like to raise taxes, but this may impact those taxes. And so you have to be aware of that. And you have to be engaged to understand it, and just be informed to help make decisions as you process this going forward. And so that is your public service research practice today. If you have any questions, my contact information is below me, my phone number, as well as my email. So thank you again, and take care.